All right, so CJ Henderson, reportedly, according to Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, the Jaguars are interested in potentially having conversations about moving him. This is a former first-round pick, a guy that, you go back to that draft period. I mean, I believe, was he drafted last year or 19?
He was 19, I believe.
So that was the combine. We were there, and he was a guy that, I think we're always talking about cornerback with the Bills. I mean, Levi Wallace, every year we're talking about what can the Bills do to bring in a guy that can supplant him as starter. A couple things on Henderson, though, that I think is interesting. You go back to his college tape or his college scouting reports, and one of the things I tweeted it the other night, some issues closing in as a tackler, which I think is going to be big time demerits for this coaching staff in Buffalo. Number two, sometimes struggled to find his man in zone coverage, which I think is another issue. We've heard from Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson talk about the unbelievable process it's been. Guys that were really good at press in college, trying to come into this defense and learn how to be an off corner in a zone scheme. Tre'Davious White has spent his career perfecting it, and even he still at times, it has some learning moments. And so I think bringing in a guy that maybe at this stage of the game, especially, listen, if a deal's there and it makes sense and it's not going to cost you a lot, sure, go out and acquire a guy and you'll develop him, whatever. You still have Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson. But I don't think we're sitting here talking about Brandon Beane giving up a day one pick for a guy that, unless it's a perfect fit schematically and what they're looking for in a player at that position.
And I believe the report said there's no real angst between the two sides.
Mm-hmm.
They just maybe feel more comfortable with the new coaching staff, with the other options that they have. I still would be taken back that a high first-round pick, regardless of a regime change, potentially on the outs just a couple of years later. I wish I would. I definitely profiled him leading into that draft, but since it was so long ago, I can't remember everything. But I did like him. He physically gifted at Florida, but again, I think to your point, is the juice worth the squeeze? I mean, is he that big of an upgrade for the price that you'd have to pay over what you have in Levi Wallace or what you have in Dane Jackson? And I would say immediate upgrade, because this team is in the now. Right. This is the now. You don't have time for a young player who maybe isn't as well versed in zone coverage to come in here and take a year or even half a year to figure it out and improve. They have guys that are already in the system for a year plus. In Dane Jackson's case, Levi, multiple years as the starter, that if they're going to bring in somebody else, they want to know what they're getting if they're going to pay that sort of a premium. I'm pretty sure there were some good cornerbacks in the draft this year that if they had fallen to them, maybe that's the pick instead of Rousseau. Mm-hmm. Although it appears they really felt defensive line is where they needed to address some things. But I don't think – what's the price for a guy who was a first-round pick only a couple of years ago? I agree with you. It's probably a second or a third, and I don't think that that's necessarily worth it, because then you also are going to have to get rid of another corner. And does that mean, not saying Cam Lewis is not expendable, but he's been in the system. They like what they've seen from him. And how many corners are they going to keep as it is? I just don't see it as a fit right now unless the price is incredibly cheap.